Are you ready?
5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. You'll probably find a good time. Slip in there.
I'd like to welcome you to our council meeting this June 13th, 2019. In the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so, the following will apply to all comments made by the public. If you desire to be recognized by the chair, please fill out a request form, present it to the city clerk present here in council chambers. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from council. We ask that groups please designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments. Every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. Thank you for participating in your city government. We ask that you please silence all electronic devices. Our invocation will be delivered this afternoon by Pastor Michael Butler from the Altar Church of St. Cloud Vineyard. Could we all please stand together and please remain standing after the invocation for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to gather together for our city's business. Pray you bless every word spoken, every vote taken. We welcome you here, God, to help us with our city, Lord. We give you thanks and praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Blackwell,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Here.
Councilmember Cooper,
Here.
Councilmember Askew,
Here.
Councilmember Trace.
Here.
At this time, we have a presentation of the Employee of the Month by Diana Raleigh.
Good evening, Diana Raleigh, Public Services Administrator. I know, Scott, did you want to come stand up while I do this? And Roy and Eric, please. So I'm going to read this and try not to get puddly-eyed because this is a touching thing to me. Y'all might not agree, but Roy Campbell and Eric Moody are co-workers in the Street and Sidewalk Division of the Public Services Department. Roy's been with Public Services for nearly 30 years, or for nearly 20 years, and Eric has been with Public Services almost 5, helping the city maintain safe streets and sidewalks. I received a phone call one morning from a strongly emotional resident insisting he needed to speak with the Public Services Administrator regarding his sidewalk. He explained to me that he had been in the hospital, and in his absence, the city crew had come out to do sidewalk repairs. A section of the sidewalk in front of his house had been removed, and it saddened him because it had the accidental paw prints of his puppy, who had since passed away. He spoke with Eric and Roy, conveying his story of his much-loved dog. He told me how the next day he found a piece of concrete on his porch with his puppy's paw prints. He told me how much this had lifted his spirits after having been in the hospital and feeling ill. The kind act made him smile, and he needed someone at City Hall to know this story. At the end of the day, Eric and Roy had taken it upon themselves to go to the transfer station where they had taken the piece of sidewalk, and they searched through all the pieces and found the one with the paw prints, and they cut out the paw print section and brought it and left it on his doorsteps for him to find. So, this is Scott, his superintendent.
I would like to thank Roy and Eric for what they've done. It's not every day that us in public services get recognition for pretty much anything. Our job is to be invisible. You don't hear from us unless there's a problem, and then we get the phone calls. So So something like this is really touching, and it happens every day that goes unnoticed, that we help people with their issues, no matter what they might be, from big to small. So it's makes me feel really good inside that we have men and women in public services that do this every day to take care of our citizens. I just wanted to thank Roy and Eric again.
Thank you, guys. This is Diana Raleigh's last week with us. She has accepted a position at another city, and we will miss you. You've done a great job here. Thank you so much for a little over 2 years,
Almost 2 years.
almost 2 years of service. And thank you for all that you've done, and thank you for all the contributions that you made in your leadership. We're incredibly grateful to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we have a presentation of the Government Finance Officers Association Certificates of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the City of St. Cloud by Purvis Gray and Company, our independent auditors. If you gentlemen will please come. I think they want to turn the pulpit, the podium around.
Give the mayor just a moment. No, you're good.
Thanks, sir.
Trying to delay for you, sorry. Well, good afternoon. My name is Tim Westgate. I'm an audit partner with Purvis Gray and Company, auditors for the City of St. Cloud for your external financial audit. Matt Gano is the audit supervisor for the engagement. First, before we get into all the details, we're going to touch on the GFOA's award for Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting. This is not an award from us, but because it's related to what we do, we're familiar with the program, we were asked to explain it a little bit and sort of do the presentation in that regard. So this is the plaque that you end up receiving and a new coin that goes on each year. The GFOA established the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, known as the CAFR program, to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements of the generally accepted accounting principles. And instead of just preparing an annual financial report, the city elects to prepare a comprehensive annual financial report that meets the evidence of the spirit of transparency and full disclosure. And then the GFOA recognizes those governments that meet that requirement in achieving that goal. The City of St. Cloud has now met those requirements for over 20 years in a row, and that is a great accomplishment for the city. Reports that are submitted in the CAFR program are reviewed by select members of the GFOA, of their professional staff, as well as GFOA special review committees, which comprise of individuals in the public sector financial reporting, includes financial statement preparers, independent auditors, academics, and other finance professionals. So the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting has been designated to the City of St. Cloud for the 2017 CAFR. It takes them a long time to review. This is the highest form of recognition in the governmental accounting arena for financial reporting, and its achievement represents a significant accomplishment of the city. So we like to recognize the city in receiving that award. So great job in that regard. So, and if I am okay to move on and cover the 2018
Please do.
financial statements, that way you don't have to spend the entire night with us. So I'm going to begin the process, and then Matt Gano will touch on a little bit of the information. It's a very lengthy document, as you know, that you've already received. You've had just a little bit of time to review it, And this is the final stage in the audit process. So we had an opportunity to meet very briefly with you. We've met with management. And so this is the final process for the year. As you know, the completion and issuance of the CAFR for this year was a little bit delayed, resulting from the turnover within the finance department, retirements within the finance department. But as a testament to management and the efforts of the city, the financial statements do not report material weaknesses, do not report significant deficiencies. So that is a testament to the work of the finance department to continue reporting and operating. It just took additional time to do it because of covering multiple roles. While you've had a little bit of time, we're here to provide an opportunity for any questions that you do have. We do work for council. So a reminder that if you do have other questions that come up at other times, we do invite those questions. The financial reporting does meet your external financial reporting requirements that come to you from Florida statutes. Also meets the rules of the Auditor General for external financial reporting, requirements that you have for secondary bond market, so bonds that you have out there in the market and the continuing reporting for that. Reporting that you need to do for granting agencies, and of course the award program that we expect this year's will also receive that award. Not that you want to flip through, but the main part that you would look for would be in the Independent Auditor's Report tab. You don't need to go there. But if you wanted to, that report is reminding you that it's the audit of September 30th, 2018 in that fiscal year. Management is responsible for the financial statements. Management is responsible for internal control. Our role as auditors is to provide an opinion based on our audit on those financial statements. And we're pleased to report that we have issued in this package an unmodified opinion, a clean opinion. That's the highest level of assurance you can receive from an audit. And we commend the city's efforts in obtaining that unmodified opinion again. A couple of highlights as you flip through. One of the things that we like to do is look for significant issues that may arise or what may jump out if you were to compare the last year to this year, look at some trends. The general fund is the primary operating fund of the city, and of course every government that you would go to, that's the first thing that gets looked at, the first thing that questions come up about. The general fund had an increase in fund balance, basically a net income of $645,000, resulting in an ending fund balance of nearly $14 million. The unassigned fund balance component of that is $10.6 million, which does meet the city's established minimum fund balance policy. It also meets the recommendation of the GFOA. The city has continued to take positive action to secure that fund balance over time through a combination of budgeting efforts, increase in revenues that you've experienced from improved economic activity, which allows the city to meet the demands of routine cash flow and management of the city. Of course, you also need to be considerate of factors. We live in a hurricane state, and other issues can be faced out there, as well as your own future capital improvement plans. But with all of that being considered, the general fund looks like you are in a healthy financial position for management and council to move forward and make decisions that they need to make without any alarming type issues. Overall, the major governmental funds, so all the governmental type funds of the city, had positive fund balances with the exception of the OUC Interlocal Fund. It have a small deficit of $108,000, but that is still an improvement. In the prior year, it had $146,000 deficit. So it's making improvement in that regard. Enterprise funds as well, those are your business type funds, primarily your water and sewer is what gets talked about the most. Continue to have overall improvement in those funds. Positive net position, positive working capital, only exception being the DSD fund, which you have talked about many times and all of us have shared in those discussions. Continuing that, the DSD fund does remain with a negative net position as the bonds are in default from that notice from May of 2013. The entire amount of those bonds, the city's portion of those bonds, $4.4 million is reported as a current liability, But of course, it's locked up in land. You don't have the current assets available to pay those. You've also, over time, had an accumulated liability of $9.5 million with a write-down of prior loans, city internal loans. And those do remain liabilities of the funds, but when you review the financial statements, they're disclosed in there, but they're not reported as liabilities. So there's a lot that's happening in those funds. We know that you're aware of these issues, but because of the non-compliance of the bonds and the issue, and those issues, we're still required to report on them. So when you flip to the back of the reports and the finding sections, you'll see the non-compliance with the bond covenant, the bond maturing being in there, as well as other issues related to that. So we, as you know, encourage you to continue your efforts to work with legal and bond counsel to pursue resolution of the matters and proper accounting for these complex situations you have. Another item that we've discussed that you'll see in there if you're going through the details, we've talked about the Internal Service Fund, and I believe management will be coming with more information. So the Internal Service Fund overall, combining all the internal service funds, is the motor pool, the self-insurance fund, have an overall positive net position of $1.1 million. Going back into the details of it, though, the motor pool fund has a deficit of $1 million. We are aware that management is working on the plan during the 2019 year to properly allocate those costs and determine what the source of that deficit came from and correct the accounting within that fund. So I just mentioned that because I know that's something we've talked about for a couple years now with turnover in your top management within the finance department. I think some of that plan just got delayed. But I believe management is aware, and we continue to talk about that. So that you don't have to continue to listen to me, I will invite Matt just to talk a little bit more about the audit process.
So as Tim mentioned, in addition to the independent auditor's report that we issue, we also review internal controls over compliance over financial reporting. This is noted on a separate report in the CAFR on page 131 and does not report any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses or non-compliance issues, except for the DSD bond-related issues that Tim previously mentioned. We also issue a separate report on compliance with Section 218, 415 of the Florida statutes, as required by rules of the Auditor General. This pertains to the city's investment policy. In our opinion, the city has complied with, in all material respects, of the aforementioned requirements. At the end of the reporting package, starting on page 131, we have also included a management letter as required by rules of the Florida Auditor General. These are not material weaknesses, but rather recommendations for improvement for financial management and internal controls. One of the recommendations relates to the DSD again, as previously mentioned. There is also a recommendation related to the tracking and accounting of impact fee credits in construction work in progress. Management's response is also included at the back of the report, which includes verification and internal testing procedures. We are pleased that other comments from the prior year were rectified and have been addressed. While we do also make other recommendations to management, none of those items during the course of our audit have risen to have a written finding in the report. Those are just discussed with management during our audit procedures. Again, we would like to take this time to thank you and the city staff, particularly the finance department that we work closely with throughout the audit process. Management has been very cooperative and accommodating throughout the audit, and we appreciate their professionalism. That concludes our presentation. We would like to answer any questions that you may have.
Do we have any questions from council at this point?
I do.
Council will ask you.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't get a chance to go through all of it, but a portion of it through the basic financial statement. Can you kind of get an idea where we were at one time in our water utility and our sewer utility and where we are now in
Okay.
our water and sewer utility?
Okay.
It's on page 25 in the,
All right. I don't have all of the historical data, of course, but we can take a look at what happened in this year and go a little bit from memory on prior years. And it has been more of a topic in prior years. because there was more concern. If you go back several years, just the availability working capital, that was 25, is that what you said? Let me flip pages real quick.
Page 25 under
Yeah, so
basic
begins,
financial statements.
so begins on page 25, if somebody did want to follow along, or I'll do my best to articulate it, so you're not trying to locate it and find all of those items. So 25 begins the asset side for the Water and Sewer Fund, and on page 27 near the top is the current liabilities of those funds. Working capital is your current assets exceeding your current liabilities. So it's basically sort of your available cash flow type stuff in order to meet your ongoing obligations. During the current year, the Water Utility Fund had current assets of $13.2 million, while the Water Utility Fund had current liabilities of $4.6 million. So in that regard, you can see that there's roughly $9 million or so of current working capital available in that fund. Sewer Utility Fund has current assets of $8.6 million. Flipping over to the next page, total current liabilities is $8 million, so you are in a positive working capital. While it's not significant, it's $700,000. If you go back several years, we were talking in the negatives, that the current liabilities exceeded. Continuing to look at that trend, so a couple of the financial markers, since you're asking about those funds, page 29, if you want to, about 5 lines up from the bottom of the page, is your change in net position, otherwise known as sort of your net income for the fund. For the water fund, you had a net income of roughly $8.2 million. In the sewer fund, you had a net income of $11.2 million. Now, a significant portion of that was related to developer contributions, non-cash type items that you receive that still counts as income, but it's not cash. Not spendable, but are very positive features within that fund. Page 31 is your statement of cash flows and shows a little bit on those, again, water and sewer funds. Near the top of the page, the Water Utility Fund had cash provided by operating activities of $5.8 million. The sewer fund had cash provided by operating activities of $6.5 million. And that operating revenue that it's generating, that is real cash. That's then available, excuse me, that's then available for capital projects that you may have, debt service that you have over time. Overall, near the bottom of the page, even after your current capital projects, debt service, between the two funds, you had an increase in cash of about $8 million. So there is positive cash flow, and that had not historically been our discussion. Our discussion was keep an eye on it. It wasn't panic, but it was keep an eye on it because it was experiencing some negative trends. The last year saw some beginning incremental improvement. This year had quite a bit of improvement beyond that. So.
Thank you.
Anything else? Do we have any other questions from council? Thank you very much. It's
Thank you.
been a pleasure having an extended relationship with you.
Thank you.
And we look forward to that. I'm sorry, I have a council member who's finally.
Do we need to
lived
take
his life.
public comment and vote on this?
Well, item number 1 on your council action is actually the formal acceptance of it. So typically what we've done in the past is the council's agreed to move that item up, at which point we'd ask for a motion to accept the report as presented. And then once it's second, you can take public input on it.
So we're going to move that item up now from council action, item number 1.
It's up to you, yes.
Is there any objection from council moving that item up?
No.
now?
No,
No.
Do we have any comments from the public that would like to address this item? Madam Clerk, for the record, could you read item number 1 under council action, please?
Request City Council's acceptance of the city's comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year 2017-2018 as presented by Purvis Gray and Company, LLC, independent auditors.
Do we have any further discussion or motion by council?
Motion to approve the CAFR?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Trace, a second from Councilmember Cooper. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cooper?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Great
very
evening.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
This brings us to our citizens forum. Any person who desires to comment on any item not in this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the city council. Each person is requested to complete a sign-in form to provide it to the presiding officer prior to or as soon as is practical thereafter the person addresses the council. As you come forward, please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Ms. Hewitt Crumpler. Ms. Hewitt Crumpler.
She's coming.
Okay.
He's coming.
Good evening, Hewitt Crumpler, Michigan Avenue, St. Cloud, Florida. My comments are for the record and as well as any responses I get. I'm going to be pretty brief tonight. I'm giving my name and phone number. Oops, it's 8826. Anybody who's wants to help with any of the issues that come up before us, I'm happy to work with anybody, just a citizen to citizen. So that's up there to begin with. Sorry, I have to do better on overheads. Thank you for that. My input to the council tonight is, my hope is, I come up all the time. It's not fun. It is not a fun thing to do that. All I'm trying to do is influence this council to do what's in the best interest of citizens at all times. So I may not say things the way you want to hear them, but what I'm after tonight is a simple message. If you go to London and you try to take the subway, they have this expression, mind the gap. So you stand on the platform, right, then you take a step into that car, right? And the gap is the gap, so you don't want to be stepping in there. So what I'm thinking about tonight is the gap between what the council can do and what the council should do. What are the actions that are best for the citizens of St. Cloud? You can do many, many things. You can approve every housing project that comes before you. You can do just about anything up here, because Mr. Manzares will stop you if you get right to the edge. But, I'm hoping you'll be mindful of the gap when you're making decisions, and you'll do what's in the best interest of the citizens at all times. And on that note, you can blame my bad handwriting on my 5th grade teacher that gave me an F in handwriting. I had all A's until then. I am absolutely not in favor of coal ash. I don't want any coal ash anywhere near our community, county, city, whatever. I hope that we will cancel the contract that, I guess that word is leachate, that takes the overflow stuff from that into our landfill. I'm absolutely believe we need to stop uncontrolled growth. Growth should pay for itself. That means new things should pay for the sewer, the water, the fire, the police, and the roads necessary for that new growth. It should not be a burden on the existing citizens. I am in favor of doing first things first. Put the roads in, put the schools in before you get all the traffic and the houses built. It makes no sense to do it the other way. You just create chaos. And lastly, I am absolutely not in favor of any tax or fee increases. We should live within our budget and like our citizens do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crumpler.
Ivy, can you make sure you get those documents? Ms. Crumpler, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak during the citizens forum? If not, we move to our...
Mr. Mayor, got 2 hands up.
Are you want to speak? You just. You need to give that to the clerk. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Laura Tweed. I live at 2808 Mead Avenue, St. Cloud. I'm a health and human rights advocate. I've been doing this for 36 years. I also am an insurance agent. I wear two hats. I work about 118 hours a week. You need to know what I'm involved with right now in Osceola County. Most people here don't know. Off of Simpson Road, I have a one street that has 22 houses on one street. And out of 22, 22 have cancer. I'm not talking one person per resident. I'm talking up to 3 people in one household.
Does this have to do with the leachate problem?
It does. It does.
That's later in the agenda, please. You'll need to
so-
hold your comments till we get to that item, please.
What I'd like to,
Please, ma'am, we'll let you speak in a minute, okay?
but there is something else I'd like to bring up.
We can speak to that, but we're going to
Okay.
speak to the leachate in a few minutes.
What I would like to bring up to the council here is I'm running across a lot of people in the city of St. Cloud with no health insurance and that are sick, that don't have anyone here to help them. I have a lot of veterans in this area that need to go for colonoscopies. I'm going to ask for the city of St. Cloud if you have anybody that volunteers in this area to speak up regarding our veterans. I have men and women that need colonoscopies and have no one to take them, no one that will sit at the VA with them when they have these. And some of these people have been found positive with cancer, and they need help. And all we're going to ask for the citizens of St. Cloud, if we can form some kind of committee to help the veterans get to the VA and get home from the VA, because if they're not service-connected, I can't get them there. And that is an issue I wanted to make a point with.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else need to speak during the citizens forum? Please state your name and address for the record, and please fill out a form.
I did.
Thank you.
My name's Lowell Nolinger. I live at 633 Great, St. Cloud, Florida. I just want to say thank you to the council. I know you guys have probably a long night with difficult topics, and I know that that's the week, or twice a month you have to deal with that probably on a daily basis. Being a manager myself, I know sometimes people bring me suggestions. I don't always listen to them. You know, I'm sure you hear them all the time. And so I know that the coal ash thing is a big issue right now with the city, and I know you guys didn't make that decision to have that in our community, but we have to deal with things. So I would like to just bring a suggestion to y'all tonight, take it or leave it, but being that you control the city of St. Cloud, those trucks come through city land. If you would prohibit them from driving through our territory, it would lessen the impact on the citizens of city of St. Cloud.
Well, first of all, again, we're at Citizens Forum now. If this is related to an agenda item,
It's not, I don't know anything about leach it, so.
well, that's sort of related to the same issue. So,
That's the leachate, the coal ash
I'm
issue.
talking, well, I'm just talking about the shipping of it.
all right, well, okay.
It doesn't matter,
It's up
still
to
the
the
same
mayor.
issue.
The second issue is it depends on, vehicle traffic depends on what roads we're talking about. The city has limited control over only city roads, so.
There's basically 3 ways from Tampa to here. I mean, you can go, 60 or 192 or Turnpike, so. That was my suggestion. Take it or leave it. I appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Appreciate
sir.
it. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak during the citizens forum?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Trouty Razor with Razor's Edge. I have a business on New York Avenue, on 1111 New York Avenue. An issue is brought down to the Downtown Business Group. I don't see anybody here representing, so I guess I'm the mouthpiece today. We have events going on all the time downtown, and it was brought to our attention, and we were bringing it to your attention, to turn the vendor tents around so they face the sidewalks. If we can have some feedback or some thing that we have to go forward to get that promoted to the city council or the DBA or, and what I know Dave was saying, we were making sure there's enough space in between the vendors, so the fire trucks can go down the middle, so it has to be 10 to 12 feet. The reason for that is I've been a vendor, I also do an event. And Christmas, I always buy the space in front of mine, so I'm not blocked in. And then the people that are next to me to have a space are on my sidewalk, which is not a big deal, but it prevents people from walking down and visiting the people that are the stores. So if we turn it around, that way people can walk, they'll be protected from the overhangs that we have, and they can enjoy the businesses that are down there. So that's an issue, so we wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of our interest in what we are proposing to get some help.
Thank you. That was brought to our attention, and the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Razor, for what you do in our community. I actually spoke to the fire official, the fire chief, and he's the one that designates where we can put those tents. We have no issue with those tents being faced that way, as long as we have that little gap down the middle in case we do have emergency down there. And we'll work with the downtown business group to make sure. I'm sorry the word didn't get out. That was handled last week.
But that's okay. I think it's even easier for the fire trucks to get down there if that space is open. Right now, the way it is, you have all the crowds down the middle of the road. So if something happens, you have to disperse the crowds. Whereas the other way, you have only the vendors maybe sitting with their chairs in the back, and that would give that space more open.
So what we'll do is work with you guys to have a plan that's from here at Memorial.
Okay, so we just got to get name out to all the other event promoters down here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trudy.
Thank you, Ms. Razor. Thank you. Anyone else during the citizens forum?
That's a good idea.
If not, this brings us to our consent agenda.
Okay.
The next portion of tonight's meeting is the consent agenda, which.
Mayor.
Yes.
One lady.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Janet Wilson, I gave her a paper, 2254 Seven Oaks Drive, St. Cloud, Florida. I'm still kind of just blown away by this whole coal ash
You
stuff. And I
can't
know-
talk about that now. We're going to talk about
Okay.
that in a few minutes.
I'm not talking about the leaching, I'm talking about the contract that
Okay.
got it to brought here in the first place. I guess this question has probably been asked but not answered to, that I've heard. Isn't canceling the contract cheaper than the eventual cleanup costs will be?
We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, ma'am, okay? This is not the time to do that. I'll
Okay,
give you a chance to speak later, okay?
okay.
Thank you, please. Thank you for your understanding. All right, I'm moving to the consent agenda. The next portion of tonight's meeting is the consent agenda, which contains items that have been determined to be routine and non-controversial. If anyone in the audience wishes to address a particular item on the consent agenda, now is the opportunity for you to do so. Additionally, if staff or members of the city council wish to speak on a consent item, they have the same opportunity. Are there any issues from council? Would anyone in the audience like to speak to the consent agenda? If not, do I have discussion and motion by council?
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Trey, second from Councilmember Matheny. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Would like to propose at this point, if it is the pleasure of the council, to move the council action item regarding the leach it up to the beginning of the agenda now. It would be, is that the pleasure of the council?
Sure.
Sure.
No problem.
Yep.
And that's council action item 8.
That'll be council action item number 8.
Discussion regarding current agreement for disposal of leachate generated at the JED landfill.
At this time, we have a report from our Public Services Director regarding that. We need a minute. This was at the end of our agenda, and the presentation with this needs to be moved up, so you need to give us just a few minutes while they make that change. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Diana Raleigh, Public Services Administrator. Hold on, my got a wardrobe malfunction here.
Okay.
I'm presenting some information to you to help you in the decision that you're maybe going to make tonight or sometime in the future after I...
Can everybody hear clearly? I want to make sure all of you hear.
Is this better?
Can we turn the volume up a little bit or get closer to the mic, please?
Is this better?
Thank you.
Okay, so I did some research into what the process is as far as the JED and with the city and our wastewater treatment facility or our sewage plant. If people aren't familiar what a sewage plant is, it's the water that comes out of your house after you've used it. So it's wastewater. It's polluted. So what I did do is I looked at their permit. I went into Oculus, which is where the Florida Department of Environmental Protection keeps the information on the JED landfill. I have found that the JED, in accordance with our permit or our agreement, they test the treated, because they treat what's called leachate. If I need to go through, explain what leachate is, it is the liquid that comes out of a landfill after rainwater and the decomposing materials and items that are put in a landfill, which include domestic solid waste, people's garbage, and any other item that is put in there to be disposed of. So when the rainwater hits it, it percolates through and it's collected in a piped system. The JED landfill treats this resultant leachate, what it's called, with an aeration system. So they test the treated leachate that generates from the landfill and the untreated to determine what's in it and is their aeration system effective. Using an independent laboratory, they test that and have it analyzed. So the landfill owners and operators are not doing their own testing. It is sent out to an independent certified laboratory. Semi-annually, the results contain a list of analytes, the items that are tested for, to include things such as heavy metals, pesticides, dioxins, all the things that many people are concerned with causing cancer and items of that. So it's tested semi-annually, meaning twice a year, and then quarterly it is tested for oxygen demand, pH, and ammonia. All of those results are provided to the city. The oxygen demand is something that is important to us because it's how we work our wastewater treatment plant. We use aerobic digestion. At this time, and under the review that I went through with the information that was available through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the JED landfill is in compliance with all of their operating procedures and standards with their permit to operate as a landfill. In addition, they are meeting our request for information currently as our agreement is put together. The city tests, using an independent certified laboratory, weekly the reclaimed water that is generated from the sewage plant, and annually the injection well that is used to put excess reclaimed water. We call it reclaimed water. It's the treated water that has come to the plant that includes your sewage, the leachate from the landfill, the leachate from our closed landfill, the runoff from our wash truck station at the transfer station. So we test it every single week before we send it out as reclaimed water to be used out in the city in the reclaim system. We are in compliance with all state and federal regulations and standards that are set forth to state that our water is reclaimed and safe to be used as reclaimed or placed in the injection well during low demand for reclaimed water. We are also in compliance with all of our other requirements as to operate as a wastewater treatment plant. I have a photo here that I can't really zoom in on it to show this is the location where the leachate is received at our transfer station. I don't know if there's a red beam on here. Yeah, okay. So in the background, there are 2 tanks. They are in a containment area. The truck from the JED landfill comes to these 2 tanks, and it offloads, it pumps into those tanks the leachate. In the offloading area, it is also contained in case there is any drippage or anything, and it all goes back into the system to ensure that nothing enters onto the ground to gain entrance into our groundwater. That system is slowly fed. Like I said, I wish I had a pointer so I can show you. The 2 green pipes that you see in the foreground in the concrete, that is where the lift station is. The water is gravity fed from the 2 tanks in the back into that lift station, as gravity will feed it through, and there is fluid in the tank. Also at that lift station, the City of St. Cloud's closed landfill drips leachate into that lift station, along with, again, our truck rack washing station where our solid waste trucks go and wash off the garbage, debris, whatever, however you want to call it, in layman's terms for everyone to understand, the trash that we pick up off the street. They wash the trucks at the truck rack. That drains into the lift station, and it's all mixed together, and then at 80 gallons per minute, it is pumped through a piped system to the wastewater treatment plant to be treated along with the other wastewater that is sent to be turned into reclaimed water. I'm hoping that this information will help you in your decision-making process that is in your hands now. If you have any questions.
Yeah, please. Stay, please, City Manager.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I'd like to have Mr. Manzares explain the agreement we currently have with JED to accept that leachate, if he would take a few minutes to outline that.
Well, before I do that, do you have any questions from council you'd like to ask Ms. Raleigh at this point?
Not yet.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Manzares, would you explain our contract?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think Ms. Raleigh went a good way to explain to you the process that happens after when we've received this material. But I think what I want to make sure, at least from some of the comments I've heard so far, is make sure everybody understands what we're talking about here today. In 2009, the city entered into an agreement with the entity, which was then Omni Waste, to basically receive a byproduct of material, liquid material, that results from the JED landfill. The city, as you all know, the city no longer has an active landfill. The city does not receive any trash, any items or anything, and store it in a landfill. So the city no longer operates a landfill. That landfill has been closed for several years now. So this agreement is an agreement to receive the byproduct liquid that comes from the JED landfill facility. And the agreement provides that the entity will bring this liquid to us, and that they will pay the city for this, and then the city will allow that liquid to be placed into its system, as Diana explained, to ultimately be treated and used and treated for reclaimed water and used as reclaimed water. I think it's important to remember that's the agreement that was put in 2009. The agreement does not require the city to receive anything other than this liquid byproduct that comes from the JED landfill. We are not required to receive any solid materials at all, whether it's coal ash or anything else. It doesn't require any of that. So those items are not brought into the city and not placed into the city's system and do not go into the landfill because the city's landfill is closed. So that was the agreement that was entered into 2009. It's a 20-year agreement the city entered into back then. It includes a secondary agreement that is essentially a lease agreement that allowed for the construction of the improvements that you're seeing in that picture. So there's actually 2 agreements. One is the lease agreement for the construction of that facility that was paid for by Omni Waste, and then the disposal agreement, which allows for this byproduct to be essentially discharged into the city's existing system. So the item that's on your agenda tonight is to talk about that discharge agreement and whether that is something that the city the city council wants to address.
I think part of the question also is, the contract, if we cancel our contract, this contractual agreement that we've had for over 10 years, it's a 20-year contract with Omni Waste, who is processed, do they not receive our own waste?
They receive the sludge that is generated at our wastewater facility, and they also receive all of the city's and a large portion of the county's solid waste or trash pickup.
All right, so this leachate that we've been processing for over 10 years now, is that not correct?
That is correct.
The question is, if we cancel our contract, what are the liabilities that the city could stand to be responsible for, as well as what are the terms that if you have an objection and you're wanting to cancel your contract, what are the terms that allow you to cancel a contract, because this is a legal binding document?
Right, and I can try to answer the second question first, which is the contract has specific terms in it with regard to testing, as Diana alluded to, and standards that that Omni Waste or Omni, the successor to Omni Waste has to meet up in terms of testing, what they're supposed to do. I think you mentioned that this material has to be treated, aerated, I think, before it treated.
Yes, they have an aeration system.
So it's required in the contract that they do that. So assuming they are meeting all the requirements that are in the contract, treating the material the way it's supposed to be, doing the testing they're supposed to be doing, they are complying with all their part of paying the amount of money they're supposed to be paying the city for this. Assuming they're doing all that, then they are technically complying with the terms of the contract. The contract does have a provision in it that allows for the city, in the event that the city deems that there, and there's certain specified items in it, that the city basically determines that the discharge of this material into the city system is causing the city's ultimate reclaimed water to go to a quality level below the standards for it. I mean, you're the technical people, so you don't get it right. So if the quality is reduced or compromised, the standards are compromised by virtue of the discharge of whatever byproduct comes out of the JED facility, then the city does have an ability to stop the discharge of that byproduct into the city system. The contract also has a provision in it, though, that says that if the city's going to do that, the city has to give the Omni the opportunity to explain why, or to take steps to address that problem as identified by the city. So assuming that Omni is in complete compliance with all their terms of the agreement, then assuming that there's a problem with this material that's being discharged into the city system, then the only option would be at this point would be for the city to exercise its right to let Omni know that there's a problem with the material that's being discharged. It's negatively impacting the city system and the quality of the reclaimed water, and therefore give them the opportunity to fix the problem, or the city would stop their receiving the byproduct into the system. That's the way the contract terms would read, so you'd have to reach that first determination before you could do that. The liability piece of it all is all dependent on essentially what impact you're going to have on the rights that the Omni has as a party to a contract with the city. If they're not in breach of the contract in any way, then it's an enforceable contract. If the city decides it wants to terminate the contract and we are deemed in breach of the contract, then we are subject to liability and damages from the other party to the contract. And I can't quantify that for you at this point. I would assume that a lot of that would, to answer that part of the question, a lot of that would depend on what does the entity have to do now to discharge this material. In other words, where do they have to take it? What's the cost for them to take it? What's it going to cost them over the life of the balance of the contract to find an alternative place to discharge this material? And that would be part of their damages in the event that the city is deemed to have wrongfully terminated the agreement. But again, I can't quantify that for you at this point. I can tell you 10 years of a contract is going to have a value amount to it, and what that is, though, it's all going to depend on what are they going to be there, what are they going to have to do to resolve, or at least to pay to get rid of this material in another location.
It says, the contract that I'm looking at says that we can ask for additional tests from independent sources and it seems to me to be it's the company's responsibility to provide us a review of the laboratory analysis, and the city shall notify the company of the acceptability of the leachate based on the analysis results. And the company shall assume and pay all costs associated with the sampling and analysis. You know, it's my understanding that fly ash has been processed regularly through this facility, through this landfill, but never in the quantities that we're talking about now. But it seems to me the issues of our contract says that, first of all, we got to get some analysis of the leachate that says it's not acceptable.
Well, the
anymore,
contract
or-
had some initial terms in it with regard to testing that were designed to deal with the first few years of the contract with regard to receipt of the leachate. There's a provision in the contract that basically allows the city at any time to go to a monthly sampling of the material that's being received. I don't think, are they doing it monthly now?
Right now, it's quarterly. They are in compliance with the latter years of it.
Right, but there is a provision that allows the city to basically, for whatever reason, exercise an option to say, okay, no, quarterly isn't enough. You have to test this material monthly. So there is that provision in the agreement.
And then it's tested after we put it through our waste treatment system again, is that not correct?
Yes, sir. We test it at the end of our treatment train to verify that we are meeting the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, their standards for secondary and primary drinking water contaminants.
My question is, what would we do if you received testing that said, you know, the contamination of this leachate now is so significant from the additional amounts of coal ash that have been brought in from the outside beyond what they've normally ever done in the past, what would you do then?
We would have to
Like you're going to be here 2 or 3 more weeks to deal with this issue?
Well, if I could, Mr. Mayor, if you had a study that showed that, again, it was compromising the city's wastewater treatment facility system, or was exceeding levels so that it caused the quality of the reclaimed water that ultimately is treated by the city and used, then you would have a reason to go back to Omni and say, no, you're going to have to address this issue and you're going to have to deal with it. That's what the contract provides. So with that finding, then there would be some information that would allow you to exercise that option in the contract.
Okay. Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you. Ms. Rollins, how much liquid daily are we getting coming from the leachate right now?
The current
Average.
is around 13,000 to 15,000 gallons daily.
And what's the maximum that
40,000.
that's the contract, right?
Correct.
Okay. And why is it slower now? And they're bringing leachate like day and night, it seems like. Where's the rest of that leachate coming from? Or where is it going?
Leachate isn't coal ash, it's the liquid from the landfill.
Right.
It's dependent on how much rain falls. We've been in a drought.
Drought lately,
And so
I
if you don't have any rain going through the landfill,
So it's going to be
it'll
it's going to
slow.
be exponential. It's growing. This rain's coming. It's going to.
It generally, the intake does increase during the summer months, that is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Councilmember Raskin.
So let's bring this all together. It just seems like you just told me all the testing that we do. There's really no way that we can blame anything on anybody at this point, because the testing is not done when the trucks come from JED and they're dropping it in the tanks. That's where we need to do the testing. We need to do the testing monthly. And because the way we're doing the testing now, we can't blame it on anybody. It could be our landfill, it could be JED's landfill, it could be anybody's landfill.
The
So-
testing is done prior to being, but we get the reports for that. But are you asking for it to be more frequently on every delivery, or?
I think it should be when it comes and they put it in our tank. And then that's where the testing should be. And then when it goes into our unit, and then we can go, okay, now we have this is the product that we're getting out of there. Right now, we can't blame the product that comes out on really anybody because we have 3 different entities coming in to the same place. So is there a way to test that liquid that's coming to us? I mean, I don't like the whole thing, but I also understand contracts, and I really don't want to have our citizens pay for a contract and then have the leaching go someplace else. I would like it to go someplace else, but I know your staff does a great job at reclaimed water, and they're great at what they do, and I feel comfortable that they're going to be able to take care of that as long as they can take care of it. And you're telling me they can, but I think we need more testing so we know if it's bad or if it's messing up our system.
The results aren't immediate.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's going to take a while to get through that.
Right, so it's, that's the only thing I can say. The results, we won't have the analyticals the day they're bringing it to the tank.
This is all a bad thing, and I read the report from DEP in Puerto Rico and how there was no lining, there's nothing that ruined these people's water over there. And I would be thinking the same thing, and I'm thinking of my family as well. With JED, I read a little bit more on that, and it's more than one lining on there, and they're trying to basically here in the States, we're trying to control all this. I really don't want it to come to us, but this was signed way before my time. I'm going to try to deal with the contract, but I really would like to know what is coming to our tanks and what is being put into our reclaimed water system.
I understand. I'm not an attorney, so I can't say if I can change that. But the reality is I would like you to know that you're not going to get the results right there at the tank when they're discharging.
Does the leachate from our landfill go into this holding tank?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It goes into the lift station.
No.
They all go into the,
no,
it doesn't go in the holding tank.
tank.
They all go in the lift station
right.
together, where you see the green pipes in the forefront. Everything merges there and then goes into the wastewater treatment
All
facility.
right, so the holding tank was put there by Omni, was it not? And
Correct.
then their leachate goes into that before it goes into our treatment system, is that not
That
correct?
is correct.
Mr. Manzares.
I just want to try to get back to Mr. Askew's question. The contract provides and presumes that the leachate that is being delivered from JED to those tanks that are sitting in the far part of that picture
Right.
is tested before it goes into that system,
Right.
that little flat thing that's in the front of your picture.
Every month?
No, not right
can
now. It's
request- we can
quarterly
request
is what it's being done. Okay. So as I said to you, the contract does have a provision in it that allows the city to go back and say, no, you have to test that every month now. So you can, if that's the pleasure of the council, we can immediately work to enter, and I think it should be, it should be done, obviously, based on what's been going. But I was trying to get to your question, is that it can and it should be being tested prior to it being blended with these other, with this leachate that's coming from, and wastewater that's coming from other sources.
Yeah, we don't have a leg to stand on to say our system has changed based under the way we test it now. We should test it at that tank.
And I think, and the contract provides for that.
It says the city may require reversion to monthly sampling of these parameters at any time deemed necessary by the city acting reasonably.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you. Mr. Sturgeon, the last council meeting that we had, I think I had asked you if we could have a quicker response and find out of the inspection of that leachate quicker than as soon as possible or quicker?
And it is in the contract, so you're the city, if you direct that, tomorrow we'll be on the phone with them and send them a letter saying we want more testing.
Okay.
And that is spelled out in the contract. That's, all I need is direction of the council, and we'll take care of it forthwith.
Councilmember Trace.
I'm all in favor of increasing the quality of testing, especially it outlines it in our contract. I just want us to have an expert look into what we're testing, and if we need to add testing parameters to the sampling that we're doing, if there's heavy metals or something that might not percolate through the system or might get through the system, the wastewater treatment system, because it's not a normal wastewater constituent, if we could test for that too. Just, I don't know what other things, I'm not a chemist or biologist, but just whatever list we need to come up with that would adequately test these parameters.
Those items are tested semi-annually prior to receiving them.
Okay, so
Yes, the
Okay.
full Code of Federal Regulations, 40, Part
That's like the 200.
258, yes, it covers heavy metals, dioxins, pesticides, VOCs, volatile organic carbons, semi-volatile organic carbons. It covers the full spectrum of items that are considered under the Resource Recovery Act as toxic.
Okay, so.
Well-
Yes.
So if someone makes a motion before I get a chance, I just want those constituents added to the list.
Well, and I would just point out to Mr. Trace that what we're talking about right now is the testing that's required to be done by Omni under the agreement. There isn't anything that prohibits the city. In fact, the city has a right under the lease agreement, which allows for those tanks to be there, those holding tanks, I guess. The city has an absolute right to do whatever testing it wants to as often as the city wants to. And if you're proposing that maybe the city do some additional testing on it through some different sources, then I think staff would like to know that. We can certainly go back to Omni and say, we want you to do some more testing on this and at your expense. Or we can, obviously the city doesn't have to, the city can at its own expense do the testing to protect the city system.
So, Ms. Raleigh, approximately what is the cost to do a full gamut of testing?
I asked to get a cost of their semi-annual testing, but it depends on what's going on at the lab and if there are accidents with the samples or they couldn't reproduce the results. So they couldn't give me a full spectrum analytical price. I can call around to some labs. I did reach out to their independent lab, but I did not get a response. But I can look into what will it cost to have those analyticals done.
Do you have a barometer of the magnitude? Is it $100, $1,000, $10,000?
It's in the tens of thousands. The lower ones that you get when you do your usual petroleum testing are relatively inexpensive. When you go into pesticides and dioxins and things of that nature, they're more expensive. There's more items that they're searching, that they're testing for to see what the concentrations are. So they are more expensive because it's a more extensive test for a greater list of analytes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. So I'm going to make the same suggestion I made at the last council meeting and cancel the contract.
I'll second that.
I mean,
Wait,
I mean, second it before we ever get started.
you need to-
I don't understand why we're going to go through such heroic measures to try to prove that this is safe when, in an abundance of caution, I think let's cancel the contract, protect the water resources and the citizens of St. Cloud.
Before I entertain your motion, I need to allow for public comment.
I didn't make a
regarding
motion.
this other.
I didn't make one, not yet. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about was, I've read the contract too, and there is language to cancel the contract in here. And I understand anybody can sue us for anything.
Anything.
But I'm willing to take the risk on this contract. We make $13,000 annually on this contract.
It's gonna cost you more for the inspection to get it checked, and it is what it is.
Come on, guy.
We're
trying to handle this wisely.
And when I talked with the city attorney about this several weeks ago, when it first came up, I was unaware that we took the leachate until we got an email from a concerned citizen. And at the time, we also looked into the amount of money that they spent in creating this leachate disposal area, and it was $70,000 in 2009. I mean, I'm willing to take the risk to cancel the contract, and I mean, I'll leave it open for public comment, but I just don't understand why we're gonna go through banging our head against the wall, hiring experts, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to test this leachate. Just cancel the contract.
Do we have any other questions from council of Ms. Raleigh or Mr. Manzares? Do you have any other council for us at this point for opening up for public comment?
Only if you have more questions with regard to any anticipated litigation regarding the termination of the agreement.
What are some possibilities as far as litigation goes?
Well,
I mean, we've been doing this for over 10 years now.
Right, well,
And we're going to send our leachate off to some other city. That's crazy.
well, I can't, and Councilmember Matheny is exactly right. Anybody can sue anybody for anything, and all you got to do is basically have a check to be able to file it with the clerk of the court. So my counsel on you on that is, however, in the event that the other party to this contract makes a determination that we improperly terminated the contract because we did not have the basis under the contract that would show from a technical perspective that there is a problem with the byproduct material that they are providing, then we would essentially, not necessarily now, but you would be, in the sense of having to defend that litigation, be in the same boat, I think that's being suggested by a couple of council members. You'd have to go out and hire experts who would have to do testing, who would have to be prepared to testify in court at considerably more money from an expert opinion perspective than I think you're talking about right now to do some of that testing on the front end. And you would end up being in that same issue at some point. So from a litigation perspective, if litigation is filed, and if it's not, then it's not a problem. But if it is, you would essentially be in the same boat of talking to some technical folks and having to hire expert opinions to basically address some of the issues we're talking about.
And if we did lose, then we would be responsible for 10 years.
Well, I can't,
Damages?
that's what I said to you, there's
saying?
always an element of damages. There's two issues to every lawsuit. There's liability and there's damages. Damages are calculated based on a lot of different circumstances. In contracts, one of the most significant and most common determinations is what's referred to as cover damages, and that's essentially what did the other party have to do to basically get the benefit of the bargain that they had in their agreement. So they have an agreement now that has a life of another 10 years, and they negotiated for that agreement. That agreement was approved, so they would be able to establish, well, the benefit of that bargain to us over 10 years is part of the element of their damages, in addition to the costs that they put in to build the facility and some of the other things I've been talking about.
Thank you. At this time, I'll receive any comment from the residents. Michaela Wells. If you'll please state your name and your address and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Michaela Wells, and I live at 9040 Mercury Drive, Hollapore. I had a speech prepared, but after the current comments and the fact sheet I received, it doesn't really apply that much anymore. So I'm just going to wing it. Basically, I understand all the comments. Thank you for your suggestion to cancel the contract. I am a little or a lot upset. It seems I understand the whole issue with the contract and canceling and liability, but it seems the county and I don't want to blame anybody but the city, or it always places money ahead of people's health. I don't care what it costs. Don't waste my taxes for some, roads that won't get fixed. I stay in traffic, raise my taxes to help save people's lives. People get sick from this stuff, and it might not be tomorrow, it might be in 10 years, and then we're all going to stand here and ask for you guys to pay our medical bills. It's going to be a lot worse than getting out of a dumb contract that shouldn't have happened in the first place. Amen. And the stuff has been coming here since 2004. Nobody paid attention. Now we get over 300,000 tons extra from Puerto Rico, where people are already dying, where the groundwater is up to 14 times the level of where it's allowed to be. This stuff and the same stuff from that city is coming here. It is not safe. It is dangerous. And eventually it's going to hit the leachate. It's going to hit our groundwater. And compliance or not, there are years of well testing out there. If you look at the results, compare 2004 to 2000, the most recent test done, world of difference. Year by year, it gets worse and worse. Drinking water levels are already being exceeded and nothing is being done. They are in compliance, it is being monitored, nothing is being done. And some of the wells that test positive or are exceeding the standards are outside the double-lined area, which means it's already contaminating areas that are outside the double-lined area. So it's reaching areas that are not protected, so it's spreading. And we are all out there with well water. St. Cloud City, it still says it doesn't go in the groundwater. You can only treat water so much. You cannot remove everything that is in that stuff. It's gonna end up in our ground. Whether we drink it or water our plants with it, it's gonna hit the groundwater. And we need to stop it. People are dying, people are sick. I know there's no proof yet out there, but I can tell you stories from Hollapah. It has to do with our water out there, and it's just gonna get worse. And money is not worth anybody's life.
Thank you, McKenna. Lowell Nollinger. Thank you, sir. Janet Wilson.
I agree with everything she just said.
Thank you, ma'am. Debbie Moore. Please state your name and address for the record,
My name
please.
is Debbie Moore. I live at Lake Lizzie Drive, east of St. Cloud. Glad that I could attend this. Short notice, I just found out before I got here. She said everything that I wanted to say, but I do have some other points that I want to make. Please, put your people in St. Cloud first and the residents, not your pockets. These politicians have got to stop patting their pockets, putting that stuff before the citizens and the people of the United States. You know, it's not just about this little town, it's about politicians and our government. You can see it all the way from the little ones all the way up to the big ones, to the presidency. What's going on in our nation? And we got to stop it. And it starts here and it goes up. And we all need to be involved. And I'm just asking you guys to help, because you guys, we're depending on you guys to be our voice and take action and do what is right. And I'm sorry I'm getting upset about this. I speak for every one of these people that have had cancer or know people that have cancer, because it's not just our town, that we're touching on a serious situation here. Because I've called Erin Brockfish. She's involved right now in Brevard County with cancer, an epidemic of cancer from contaminated water that is being investigated. And it goes, from what I understand, it could all as well go all the way from Brevard County to Hollapah. That's right. So you guys need to be really on top of this. And it's up to you guys. Because if you don't stand up for us, you're the one that is going to take the blame for this in the long run. Because you could have prevented it. You could have stopped it. And we're asking you to do that tonight. Not in the future, but now. And to stop it now. It should have never happened in the first place. It is illegal over there in Puerto Rico. They banned it because the water's contaminated, the soil is contaminated, the people have cancer. The scientists have come forward that have investigated this and got all the evidence, scientific evidence of what this stuff does and what it has done to Puerto Rico, and said it is immoral to have Puerto Rico to have brought it over here and dumped it on us. And I condemn JD, whatever it is, this waste management. Shame on them for putting the dollar first before this community.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I also, please let me just say one more thing. I know my time is up. But this was illegal what they did. They used this, they passed it without the public's knowledge. They did it the last hour. And I'm not going to mention names because I think you guys all know who I'm talking about. Who recused himself because he had shares in that situation. And that is wrong. And you guys got a case to stand on.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you for showing up, man.
Valerie Anderson.
Valerie Anderson, 714 Kentucky Avenue, St. Cloud. Firstly, I'd like to address thank you for continuing to work on the park zoning issue. It's been a while, but thank you. So obviously, we're concerned that this particular ash contains many carcinogenic compounds that the City of St. Cloud's wastewater treatment facility is not designed to handle. You have heard that the DEP considers this waste to be non-hazardous and that the JED landfill is a Class 1 landfill that is suitable to handle this non-hazardous waste. The EPA has known since the year 2000 that the tests they use to assess the hazardous nature of this material is not adequate to assess it. There's a better test to use, but the coal lobby is very powerful and has prevented that test from becoming the standard test. So this is called the TCLP test. It's like trying to make tea with tap water, and you wonder why there's no tannins in that tea, because the water's not hot enough, as it were. So what I'm really concerned about is the Florida DEP and the US EPA are currently subject to regulatory capture, which means that they're not able to effectively protect our health because they're already captured by the industries that they're supposed to regulate. So I looked through Oculus of the JED landfill, and there are a number of exceedances going back to 2006. And the number of violations, hazardous waste that being dumped in the landfill, and the DEP doesn't do anything about it. And so saying that there are appropriate permits and that everything is up to speed, those permits are not protecting us. And so that is my concern, and that is why I would like the City of St. Cloud to take the step to go above and beyond the EPA regulations, above and beyond the DEP regulations, because they are not currently adequate to protect our health. And to do so by perhaps, at the very minimum, requiring higher water quality standards than the DEP and the EPA require in our reclaimed water, and by also canceling the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Lindsay Pippin. All right, thank you. April Hartney.
Sorry, bad handwriting. It's Ariel Hartney, 199 East Cedarwood Circle, Kissimmee. So in my opinion, accepting the leachate from JED is a liability that the city can't afford. The nature of waste in a landfill tends to be heterogeneous because in this case, it's a mixed waste facility. Lots of stuff is being dumped there, not just coal ash. The problem is looking at things in isolation and not looking at the synergistic effect of those other materials and how they react and interact with the coal ash. The leachate is currently tested for things that might foul up the treatment facility, but not necessarily for things that would be of concern to us, which would be radionuclides. You know, if we have radioactive leachate, no one's going to see it. No one's going to know it. It's not tested for. And that's a big problem. So if you are able to push the JED facility to require that extra testing, or to even test the parent material, the coal ash itself, because the leachate is a product of it, but it's directly related to what that material is. So running leaf test, the test mentioned by Valerie, it's an extraction procedure that varies the pH level, better simulates what actually happens in a landfill setting because of the variable pH. And I'm not going to get into too much of that, but the bottom line is the TCLP test keeps the pH constant and low. You're not going to see the same extractables that you would get from a proper test, which is the leaf. And that's the bottom line. So we're showing what we want to show by the testing that is currently required. That's the bottom line. And that's nationwide. And that's scary to me. You trust your government? You trust your city? You know what I mean? If you do, I'm saying, do you? Because if you do, it's like once you start opening your eyes and digging through the research material, This is a scary situation we're in. And it's not just here. It is everywhere. Vanadium pentoxide is the type of vanadium, typically in coal ash, toxic to aquatic organisms, dispersed in air, water soluble. What do you think happens when you have rainwater percolating through that aquifer, through the landfill into the aquifer? Everything is interrelated. The hydrology, the topography of Florida, the karst, limestone, everything is interrelated. We can't look at things in isolation and say, it will never happen. Pollution will be contained. There's nothing to worry about. Everything's safe. It's non-hazardous. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, April. Laura Tweed.
Hearing all the subjects that
State your name and address for the record.
Laura Tweed, Mead Avenue, St. Cloud.
Thank you, Laura.
After hearing everyone's speech tonight and what they have to say, those are awesome things to hear, but I'm the cleanup crew. I'm the one that's dealing with the death. I'm the one that says the goodbye and holds their hand. That's a hard thing for anyone to watch. I grew up in St. Cloud as a teenager. I came to St. Cloud to eat oysters, horseback ride, and go fishing. That's what it was known for. I went to school in South Orlando, grew up in South Orlando, but this is my weekend haven. Now I live in it. Go to my house. You'll find I have a Brita water filter on my counter. My refrigerator has a filter on the inside. It has a filter on the outside. And I just ordered 2 shower filters for my house. I'm not having anything in my house that is not filtered. I work with Aaron Brockovich over in Brevard County, watching with Stell Bailey all the issues going on, not only in this county, in that county, city of Kissimmee, all over. It's all over the state. If you want to get into the testing that some of the women here, I'm very prideful tonight to hear these women get up and be able to speak the way they were speaking about subject matter that we're speaking of today. Arsenic, boron, cadmium, chromium, cobalt, copper, lead, lithium, mercury, molybdenum, selenium, thallium, and uranium. Our test in the state right now is nowhere in comparison to where it should be. I just busted it at a landfill off of Simpson Road, unpermitted, and the builder was digging 5- and 6-foot trenches and putting batteries in the hole. That's where my 22 cases of cancer are. Did that come from those dumps? No. There was a cattle ranch back there that was doing cattle washing in cattle vats, and guess what was in there? Thank you. And also rat poison. You're dealing with arsenic and rat poison on the cattle wash. That family that just sold that property of 2,200 acres, what do you think is going to happen to it off Hilliard Isle? They're developing it. Okay? They're going to be putting families on land that is contaminated. Who's going to be cleaning it up? We don't have taxpayers donating money to an account for someone like myself to go in and take care and hold the family's hands. But I will tell you one thing. Somebody calls me and they said, Laura, I think my family member has been heavy metal problems. They've died of this, that, and the other that was in the well water. This street that's off of Simpson Road, every house on that street's got well water. They're not on city water. I went to a country concert over the 3-day concert. I ordered unsweet tea that comes in the metal cups. I paid $20 for 2 cups. I threw the $20 tea right in the floor. I refused to drink it. I had to go to Jimmy Bear's to get filtered tea. I don't drink anything. I don't drink soda. I don't drink anything with sugar in it. When it comes to health, if someone dies here in this county and the family comes to me and what do you think about heavy metals? Guess what? Every inch of your hair is going to tell you what's in your water. Do y'all know that?
Thank you. You need to finish up your comments.
Okay, so very quickly, if someone dies and they've had heavy metal poisoning, they get their hair tested, it's $4,400 for heavy metal testing. That's only testing for 4 metals. On a public base, when it comes to the water, we need to be more aware of what's going into our water. This contract request tonight is probably the best thing I've heard in a long time. I'm here to help the residents any way I can, but we can't keep contaminating.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item that hasn't done so? Ms. Crumpler?
Good evening, Hugh Crumpler, Michigan Avenue, St. Cloud, Florida. Hello to my 87-year-old mother that's sitting home watching this. I want to say, first of all, thank you, Mr. Cooper, for bringing this item forward and making it public. Secondly, thank you, Mr. Cooper and Ms. Matheny, for having the instinct to immediately suggest we cancel this contract. I very much appreciate the information, the proposal from last time, and I understand we have to look at things like cost and contracts, of course, no problem. But in that little part of what we can do versus what we should do, the best thing we can do for the citizens in that gap, I think we can keep it, we can do testing, but I think that would be a horrible mistake. And the reason I say that is all of these people have wonderful knowledge. Going back made me think of my own chemistry days, and I'm glad I have a little knowledge. But the point is, often what gets us is what we don't know. So what don't we know? We don't know how much it's going to rain. We don't know if we have a hurricane, how much water is going to fill that area. We don't know a lot of the carcinogenic items that exist there that are not being tested for. So a lot of things that we don't know are potentially very dangerous for us, as we've heard tonight. So in an abundance of caution, my recommendation would be, let's look at how we can gracefully and inexpensively get out of the contract. You know, I lived in New York City when they had 9/11. I was there, and every firefighter put their lives on the line, and there were all kinds of things that elements that nobody knew about or thought about that were in that situation that you can't think about that in advance. But here we have a chance. We have a chance to think about what could happen, what could go wrong in advance. And in my, humble opinion, why would we do anything to preserve this contract? Let's look at how much is it going to cost to get out of the contract, and then what's the alternatives for doing that. And beyond that, I have to say the case was made tonight for a lot more testing of all of our water. I mean, we test for certain things, but maybe we should be testing for a lot more. The Flint, Michigan people thought they were okay. They put in some pipes, and all the world fell apart, and people's lives were, a lot of people died. And the council members thought they were doing the right thing. But to me, an abundance of caution, figure out how you can get out of the contract. And another point that was made, I think Mr. Cooper talked about how much volume, or somebody talked about, I think they do 12,000 gallons a day or something. So 2 points about that. One is, how many more gallons is that going to be with this influx of this unexpected coal ash? That's a very important question that I'm concerned about. And also, coal ash varies greatly. I know somebody who is an expert. If you go to Pennsylvania, you can go to 3 different places in Pennsylvania that have coal ash. One place, the coal ash is okay, it doesn't really do much. Another place, it makes people sick. Another place, it kills people, depending upon what kind of coal ash it is. And we have hurricanes, we have a lot of water, and we cannot be counting on, things going our way. We have to be counting on the fact that things probably won't go our way. And let's be careful with the health, our environment, and do whatever we can today to, and I think we got a good lawyer. I think he could probably work our way, out of that contract. And even if it does cost some money to get out of it, it's going to cost a whole lot less than the impact of having messed up our entire water system and killed a bunch of people. So, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Crumpler. Does anyone else have anything new to add? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Sammy Quinones. I live at 2400 West Lindale Drive in Kissimmee, Florida. The reason I came all the way here is because we have been, as residents of Osceola County, we have been looking for help. We have been speaking and expressing ourselves to Osceola County and as residents coming here and talking with our local governments. One thing we have not heard is the city of St. Cloud or the city of Kissimmee or any other city show solidarity with the people of Osceola to show us that you don't like and accept that we're accepting coal ash into our landfill. You know, we're talking about the health. We're talking about great results here when it comes to all these testings. And we would like to see if the city of St. Cloud rejects this whole AES in our county. We don't want AES. We don't want AES buying what we residents see as politicians, you know? We would like to see the city of St. Cloud express and say, hey, we are the citizens of Osceola as well. So it's time for us to reverse the mistake that I see that our county leaders did and the people who we trust in, you know? You listen to the people around here and the morale is low because they feel that politicians are not here for us. And as far as we know, I am a voting citizen. I vote and I make and I express my voice, you know? And I understand we can make mistakes, but at the same time, we can also work together to correct them. And I want to tell you, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak who hasn't done so?
Excuse me? Would it be possible for me to just mention one important thing that I forgot?
I'll give you 1 minute, okay, since you've already spoken. You're the only exception. We have a lot of people spoken. We have a lot more business to deal with,
Okay,
and then we're
I'm
going to deal
quick.
with this one, okay?
I just wanted to mention, I forgot, important, in regards to being regulation following standards. JD landfill between 2007 and 2012 received hazardous waste. It's not allowed to receive hazardous waste. It's not equipped to handle hazardous waste, 5 years on a monthly basis. And the case was closed, mentioning it is impossible for us to locate the hazardous waste, and I quote, hopefully leachate from the hazardous waste will not cause you problems later. For now, consider this issue closed. So accidents happen, things go wrong, and we the people pay the price with our health. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on.
Darren Davis, Hickory Tree Road. Several years ago, the city of St. Cloud got themselves in a bind with the reuse water. It wasn't being disposed of properly. It was going over the back of the wall into Gator Bay and into Westlake. So the city's solution to it was to tie into Toho Water Management's reuse system from the lakefront up Parton Settlement Road. So that relieved the problem, so it didn't go over the wall. Now, all this contaminants everybody's talking about that could be in the reuse water isn't just staying in St. Cloud, it could be going into Kissimmee. Okay, the other option was to dig a well at the Southside Water Treatment Plant to take this reuse water and put it into the aquifer. It's like 2,500 foot deep or something like that, wasn't it?
3,000.
3,000, 2,500. The man that promoted it here, the engineer, which got 994,000 to do it, said that there was no way that water could get up into the drinking water aquifer. My question was, if that's true, you know where every sinkhole and every cavern in Florida is. He didn't like that. But on the average, not average, depending on the drought index and the rainfall and the amount of reuse water that's being used by the city, they could have 2.5 million gallons of reuse water going down that well a day into the aquifer. If there's contaminants from this leachate in that water, that means we're putting it, I guess, below our drinking water. But if it comes back up into the drinking water, what then? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to us that has something new to add? No, you can't do that, ma'am. We
Can't hear you.
Mayor, it's your call.
Ma'am, I've already given you time. I gave you extra time to talk, okay? So we need. No, ma'am, you need to sit down, okay? Thank you. You can't do that. Is there anyone else that hasn't spoke that would like to speak? If not, we'll have discussion and motions by the council at this point. You know, I'd just like to say, I would certainly love to see us cancel this contract. But whether we like it or not, we have legalities that are going to have to be dealt with one way or the other. And I have no problem with dealing with those legalities. I just would like to know a little bit more of what we're facing and what we're saying to our residents. You're going to have to spend in order to do this. And I'd also like to make sure that we're making a decision based on facts. You know, this is a tough situation. We didn't create it. You know, we haven't made a mistake. You know, we have a real problem with waste. This isn't going to stop the waste that we generate, and it isn't going to stop all of the contaminants that come off of waste. You're still going to have a leachate issue. And I certainly would like to know what are the scientific facts of how contaminated this water is, this leachate is really becoming as a result of this extra fly ash that's being added. And it's a challenge. And guys, we care about the city. We care about health. We care about you. We just want to make wise, responsible decisions. And that's a tough one for us right now. Mr. Manzares, do you have anything else for us?
No, sir, but from a suggestion perspective, there's two elements of the contract that are in play here. One is the one I mentioned earlier, which is that if the council believes that there is a identifiable problem with the material that's being received into the system, the council can direct that the portion of the contract that allows us to prohibit the future receipt of that material be enacted or at least being availed of, and then that would mean that we tell them that we will no longer receive this leachate from JED. That would give them the opportunity to come back in and explain or try to take some remedial action to try to address that. Based on what I heard, I think that element would be a little difficult because we do not have any real identifiable concern from a technical perspective to do that. The second piece of the contract has an ability where the council can just make a determination that the receipt of this material is an imminent threat to the city's facility and its wastewater treatment facility, and you do not have to give them the opportunity to try to correct that. So if the council is inclined to move forward in that direction at this point, it would be our suggestion that you use the latter piece, and that the council has made a determination that there's an imminent threat to the city's reclaimed water system, and therefore, under that portion of the contract, we are no longer going to accept this material. The general process in any of these issues is that, and as I think a couple of individuals have suggested, that would provide that our office or the city manager would contact Omni or the current entity, advise them of that, which of course would either open the city up for a lawsuit or initiate discussions regarding how to essentially, for lack of a better expression, extricate ourselves from that contract. So, which of course would mean likely a buyout of some sorts. So, at this point, that would be our suggestion, because based on what we've heard, it would be difficult to provide any technical analysis to say why the council is doing what the council is doing, other than we've determined that there's an imminent threat to the system.
Then we have to prove that, right? Or
well, ultimately that would be a litigation. But what I don't think that if the council is moving in that direction, I don't think going through the exercise of giving them telling them there's something wrong and giving them the opportunity to remedy it is going to address the situation if the council, it seems like the council is, at least the direction of the council is to, it may or may not be, it may be something at a later date, you may be there now, three of you or the majority of you may be there now, but it seems like the direction of council is to try to to terminate this contract immediately without having to do it. So, excuse me.
Please.
Excuse me. So, that, if that's the case, then I would suggest you use the second option available to you.
Mr. Sturgeon, you have your last.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I've listened to the deliberation in the public, and there's the legal side, but then there's a technical side. I believe, I'm going to ask him a technical question. Can we just stop accepting it tomorrow and just say, we're not taking it? I mean, I can put the police out there and say, we're not letting you come here. I mean, we can do that. And I'm saying, like I said, there's a legal perspective. They're stopping the flow right now. And it's our facility. I'll put a fence up tomorrow. I mean, I'm just trying to say, I hear what the people are saying. I'm very concerned. The charter allows me to speak, and I'm just very concerned of what I heard. I think there were some very articulate positions that were put here for this council to consider. So I just wanted to ask Mr. Manzarek.
I'm not sure that helped a whole lot.
Well,
I think it did. I think we
guess,
just tell them we don't want to.
in the interest of the, obviously, I'm trying not to be long-winded, but that's sometimes a fault as being a lawyer. But to answer Mr. Sturgeon's question, that's exactly what I meant. There are two options. The second option is you could immediately stop receiving this material. And we would just, at this point, if that's the case, then we would need the council to direct us to do that.
Councilman Orascu.
So why didn't the county use that case to stop their contract?
I don't know what their contract is. And, and it's important to remember that there isn't anything you can do tonight, short of, as one gentleman pointed, other than express solidarity with some citizens that have a problem with, or have issues, and everybody that has issue with what goes into the JED landfill.
Right.
There isn't anything this council can do tonight.
Right.
Anything that will happen if you do terminate this agreement that will directly change what type of material is received at that landfill. You have no control over that at all. You can express solidarity as citizens of Osceola County, as a city, but if you terminate the contract tonight, it is not going to change the delivery of any material at that JED facility.
Right.
Or the receipt of it. It's not. At the end, and just make sure everybody's aware of that.
Councilmember Trace.
If we stop sending or stop receiving the leachate from JED, are they within their contractual right to stop us from transferring our solid waste to their facility? Because right now we don't have a landfill, so we have to put our solid waste somewhere. We're sending it to JED now, right?
Well, yes, sir. And I don't have all the information on that, but as these agreements were negotiated as part of basically a grouping of agreements that were done in what at the time was determined to be in the best interest of the city's solid waste collection system and its reclaimed water system. The city did negotiate and receive extremely favorable rates with regard to its gate fees and its sludge receipt disposal fees from that facility. So it is very likely that should the city council elect to do that those, at the very least, that those rates would be dramatically changed, and the city would end up paying more money to dispose of the solid waste it collects and the sludge. But we don't have that information now. We just don't have that.
Okay. Do we have a backup plan if they shut us off tomorrow?
We just have to talk to the operational folks. I don't know.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so if they stop receiving our stuff, then we have no backup plan right now.
No, sir.
And I don't think necessarily that they're not going to receive. I mean, they're in the business. They're a private entity in the business of making money, so they are not going to turn away customers. They just may charge more.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you. Ms. Lonette, you had made a motion. If you don't want to, I will make a motion.
Either way.
I make a motion that we terminate this contract.
Second.
Do we have any further discussion from council regarding, do we understand the motion?
Is this?
It's immediately.
Immediately.
To stop receiving or to terminate?
Well, no, thank you, Mr. Trace, because that's what I would ask respectfully, that I would suggest that if you do not want to receive this material, that the motion would be to exercise the city's option under the contract to prohibit the discharge of this byproduct material into the city system. Not terminate the contract. There's a slight distinction between it, but you basically would say we are no longer going to accept this material based on the imminent threat to the city system.
But you're still going to allow them to bring it, to do it, to put it someplace, right? Or no?
No, you're not going to accept it.
Just not accept it?
So
Okay.
they can't bring it to the city's facility.
Okay, let's make the motion. We don't have it accepted, come into the city of St. Cloud.
Second.
So you accept that, Claire, Any further discussion?
And do we still want to get additional testing as well? I mean, there's already leachate coming through.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
It depends when we go into litigation, we're going to have that problem. Any other questions, Councilman Trace?
No.
Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Trace,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny,
Aye.
Councilmember Cooper,
Aye.
Councilmember Askew,
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Thank
Now-
you for coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
I just want to remind all of you, thank you for coming. Thank you for your input. I hope you'll be just as enthusiastic if they up our rates and we pass that on to you guys, okay? Remember that. I hope all of you will come back and cheer for that too, okay? We will. All right. Thank you very much.
You want to take a 5-minute recess?
Are y'all wanting to stay for the rest of the council meeting? No. I think y'all have helped us out enough tonight. If you want to leave, we're going to give you a minute just to make your way out.
Mayor, you want to take a couple-minute recess?
No, sir, I don't.
All right.
Mayor, we'll put the fence tomorrow
No, I'm good.
for you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll remember that.
I just want to say thank you so much.
If you're good, I mean, you just got to wait for it.
Do you need to take a break?
That was excellent. Thank
Okay.
You're missing me, right?
All right, please move out as quickly as possible. Please take your conversations outside and no more discussions in here. I would be grateful if you would honor that, please. I hope we haven't opened up Pandora's box. I would like to thank all of you that have had to wait and endure all of that, who had other items on this agenda. Thank you for your incredible patience. You guys are awesome. This brings us to public hearings. Item number 7, Roman numeral 7, item number 1. Madam Clerk.
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2019-34, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending City Code Chapter 40, Article 4, Section 40-163, Schedule of Local Business Tax Fees, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and effective date.
Mr. Andre.
Good evening. Andre Anderson, Planning Zone Director. This is the final public hearing for the business tax receipt item, which essentially it allows us to change the way that we adopt fees within our city code and land development code. And essentially, it's streamlining the process and allowing it to accept it by resolution rather than by ordinance, because ordinance requires us to have 2 public hearings and also requires us to have a public notification. So it's a little more inexpensive, and it allows us the flexibility to adopt fees as we need a little easier. So this is the final public hearing for that item. It's consistent with
Sorry,
our
mind
strategic
you.
goals for economic development and financial sustainability. And staff recommends approval of ordinance number 2019-34. Ask that the city council do the same.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hewitt Crumpler, Michigan Avenue, St. Cloud, Florida. I have really a quick comment, and that is, I looked at these fees, and I really think we shouldn't be raising fees on small businesses in the town. This is not Winter Park, okay? We've got struggling little businesses that don't have, a lot of income, and some of these fees, I don't really think it helps our downtown area. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? We'll have discussion or motion by council. Councilmember Askew.
Just to bring up that point about fees, it's just kind of interesting. I'm not sure every town does this, but a little mom and pop place, a little boutique pays the same amount of money as Super Walmart or whatever. It's all the same fee across the entire town. Do other cities have different fee structures? Like if you're a 20,000 square foot place or a 500 square foot place, they're paying the same exact fees. Is there some other structure that's out there that, I'm just curious?
The fee structure is done at the time that you adopt the schedule, and other cities vary. There's some cities that do their fees based on the square footage of the structure or the type of business. The city, as you say, has one fee structure across the board, so a large business that's 20,000, 40,000 square feet gets charged the same business tax receipt as would a 2,000 square foot business anywhere in the city. The ability to change that has long passed because you have to set the structure at the time that you establish this structure. So therefore, there's no opportunity for us to adjust that at this time. The only option that's available to us is per the statutes 205 of the Florida statute that allows municipalities to adjust their fees by 5% every other year. And it's not an automatic ratcheting, it's still something that you bring to the city council, and if they decide that they want to do it in any 1 year, then you do that. So you still have that option. But this particular item that we're discussing right now is not about the fee, it's about the way that you adopt the fee.
Right.
Do we have any further discussion?
Andre, this is just the 5%?
It's 5%, yes. So currently the fee is $56.28, and the
Even
5%.
for Walmart? Excuse me, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes, it
For
is.
Walmart, same
Yes,
price?
Yes, it is.
And there's no way to rechange that,
The
right?
Florida statute does not allow us to change that, no.
Any other discussion? Can I entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilmember Askew for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Trace. Madam Clerk?
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Sorry, I'm sorry, was that me?
Yes.
Good timing.
No.
Councilmember Cooper?
No.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2.
Item number 2.
First public hearing and introduction for ordinance number 2019-11. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a zoning district of PUD, plan unit development, compatible with the existing commercial future land use designation for approximately 104.8 acres identified as Neptune Village, located south of Neptune Road, west of Old Canoe Creek Road, providing for entering the designation of the official zoning map, filing on the Planning Commission's recommendations, and proof of publication, severability, and effective date.
Again, Andre Anderson, Planning Zone Director. This is the first public hearing for the Neptune Village Plan Unit Development. It's a zoning map amendment and also a preliminary master plan. The project is 104 acres, and the current zoning on the property is highway business. The proposed zoning would be plan unit development. It's currently compatible with the surrounding area. There are no adverse impacts to city facilities at this time. It's consistent with our growth management plan. and gross managed strategic goal. And this is a indication of the project as proposed at this time for the preliminary master plan, which includes 325,000 square feet of commercial use and approximately 1,584 residential units divided into single-family detached, townhomes, and multifamily units. Staff reviewed this and at our DRC recommended approval of ordinance 2019-11, and the Planning Commission at their meeting on 5/21 also recommended approval and asked the City Council to do the same. The applicant is here if you have any questions.
Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening, Joe Thacker, 515 Bryan Street, Kissimmee. The engineer is also present and can help answer any questions that you may have. First of all, what I'd like to reiterate what staff has mentioned is that it's presently zoned highway business. That's what you have along 192 right now. I don't think that's what anybody really wants this 100 acres to develop in the same manner as 192. This is property that's owned by a single family. It has been owned by them for quite some time. They don't have any present plans. The property is being marketed, and in order to help the marketing, we met with staff, and it was felt that it might be a positive thing to come in and get the PUD, the planned unit development. Your land development code states that a PUD is to promote efficient and economical land use, an improved level of amenities, an appropriate and our harmonious variety in physical development, creative design, improved living environments, and orderly and economic development in the city, as well as the protection of the adjacent properties. It also encourages that instead of on a lot-by-lot basis, that it's planned. And that's what the applicant has done tonight, is planned in big bubbles the 100 acres. Of that plan, and I know it's not specific, but it's a preliminary plan. It's not supposed to be specific because they don't know how it's going to truly be developed, and that would come with a final conceptual plan. Of the 100 acres, there are 88 developable acres. 51 acres would be, as proposed, residential. 28.8 would be commercial. The rest would be either on-site right-of-way, open space, stormwater, those kinds of things. If you'll note, the potential stormwater pond is at the southern end and adjacent to the existing park space proposed in Anthem Park. The other long green line that's in the concept plan, that is a gas line, and what they're proposing is a pedestrian trail along that to incorporate what's already there. And so this allows you to state what would be acceptable uses on the property, how the property would develop, as well as take into consideration the walkability, the connectivity between the residential neighborhood and the village center. I know Neptune Road will come up. The developer will work with the county because it's a county road, even though this is a city project. Mobility fee credits are not available to the developer, but they will negotiate with the county They will not put any structures, there's not any structures planned within the proposed right-of-way. They are keeping that as future right-of-way, understanding that Neptune Road improved helps everyone, including the project. So what the developer would like to do is have a discussion with you to see if the bubble plan works, to address any concerns that you have. They understand if you have concerns about the detached single-family homes, they're willing to discuss that. If you want more multifamily or townhomes, that kind of thing instead, they put that in as a transition between this project and Anthem Park. That's, you know, something that we can totally discuss. But I think the ultimate consideration is to plan this as a community. I don't think there's any other place in the city that has 100 acres under one ownership and the ability to have 30 acres of commercial developed as a whole project. You don't have that anywhere else in the city, I don't think. I don't know if you have 100 acres in the city
Stevens.
that still has developable acres, right? So besides Stevens Plantation, I think this is your other opportunity to have, you know, what they've done at Stevens. You've got wonderful neighborhoods in there, and you've got the opportunity to have some great commercial. I know one of the residents tonight has said, let growth pay for itself. Well, this is an opportunity because with the commercial component, it would definitely do that. The infrastructure, this is your entrance into St. Cloud after you go over the bridge. It's important that it be planned appropriately and not on a lot-by-lot basis. So we're happy to answer any questions you have, consider any recommendations that you may have, and Ms. Hughes is here to answer any technical questions as well.
Are there any other comments from the applicant?
I'd
Would
be
anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and/or a motion by council. Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you. Joe, could you come up here? You and I had a discussion today. 713 multifamily homes?
Yes.
Somewhere around 700?
That's correct.
Okay. I just did the math, and it looks like about 3,000 cars on that two-lane road. Tohoku was not even a mile and a half away, and you got 4,000 homes already. So how much more we can take on a two-lane road? And I think that you and I asked you how many egresses we're going to have, and you said 3 on a two-lane road, right there.
So 3, ultimately, they don't all have to come in at once. And remember, the final concept plan
Yeah,
would.
but you're,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, excuse me. But it looks like to me what you're trying to do is to put the most donkey into the carriage and see who could pull it. You know, as far as we could go is let's just put everything on there, we can go and keep going. And we've got, 6,000-7,000 homes over here, we got 4,000 here, we've got yours wanting to come, but you're putting it at the maximum load level. You know, you're trying to put 3,000 new cars on the road, right there, bam. And you're saying, just coming right over the canal and you're coming right into St. Cloud. Here we go, there's 3,000 cars right there. I have a problem with that, I'm sorry.
Understand.
Well, that's where I'm at.
Right. And if the road were 4-lane, would that make a difference?
Yeah, if you do it first, but you're wanting to do the donkey after the cart.
Not necessarily.
Oh, I think you are. You haven't even sold it. I asked you the question, have you sold it?
And I
Or you've
said
got
no.
Perspective, and you said you've got one or two, but they only wanted to buy single family.
That's
And
right.
the family wanted probably to get more money so they could get more and more
Well,
homes built there.
No, I think,
Commercial is not very, what your commercial here that you're trying to put on here is not very big square footage. Not considered what you're putting the homes in the back. That's the problem.
the commercial is proposed at 325,000 square feet of commercial. That's a lot for this market to handle. I don't know, I mean, downtown isn't 325,000 square feet. Not even, I don't think it's, I don't know if it's even close to that. So, that's a lot, I agree. This is a corner that should be developed, as far as the infrastructure, and understanding that the road is important, but this is an infill piece. This is something, I think, when you look at your sustainability report that was taken into consideration. This is a piece in the city. It's a piece that has been kept agriculture for hundreds of years, but as it gets, we're going from suburban to urban, and we're not asking to annex because it's already annexed. It's already part of your city.
I mean, yes, ma'am, but I wouldn't have a problem if you had a buyer that says, okay, here's what we're going to do, and we'll negotiate with the council. But now what you're trying to do is to drive it up more, bigger, larger, biggest homes that they can get, the most homes you can get in there. That's where I have a problem. It's not even sold, not saleable. You don't even know in the next year or two if it'll be sold. Or if it's going to be marketed for sale.
I don't.
Okay. I just have a problem with that.
Understand.
Thank you, Councilman Cooper. Do we have
Thank you.
Councilman Askew?
For the record, I had a conversation with Joe on the phone regarding this project. It's the 325,000 square feet, which is about 7 acres, 7.5 acres, something around that area. Is there any way we can get more commercial in that area? And
That's 28 acres of commercial.
the 3,200, okay.
325,000 square feet.
And you're going to do commercial all in that one corner where the car wash is and?
Right, it's a little bit bigger than that area. It looks little on the bubble plan, but if you take a look at it, and if I could get the concept plan, sorry. So from the north, that's across from the Sergeant Graham Road. So that's pretty far back when you think about it. And that would begin where the commercials would start and come through all the way on to Old Canoe Creek Road. So that's about almost 30 acres of commercial. No?
The math isn't right. 325,000 divided by 43.5. Go ahead. Wait, am I converting it wrong?
You're converting it right, it's just the FAR. It won't be 1.0 FAR. There needs to be parking and open space and everything.
Okay, so the acreage is the thing.
So the building would be 7 acres, like combined building would be 7 acres. There's just.
Factor and everything else.
The FAR is 0.08.
That's a maximum, right?
That's a maximum, is a 0.08. And a lot of cities, and I know in the counties and some of the centers that they're doing, even on the community center, not the employment center, they're forcing an FAR of 1.0. And so this doesn't even reach that. It's a 0.08.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. So when I had my agenda review and discussing this with staff, I got the impression staff wasn't that happy with this, this application, even though they said they're approving it. I don't know if Andre wants to get up and talk about that, but one of the things that I talked with Andre about, which is another task for Andre, I like to give him apparently one per meeting, was the fact the fact that, you know, it's like things are coming to us so generic. You know, I just don't really get a good feeling for what's coming. You know, it's just like super generic bubble plans, and I feel like our negotiating position like goes out the window when we approve things up front and we don't really know exactly what anything was going to be. So one of the things I talked with Andre about was, you know, like us putting our heads together and trying to get more detailed requirements in our submittals so that we have like more understanding. I mean, for me, I don't see in my package, I don't know if Andre has it, where it has all of the zoning along this road, because I believe it's all highway business from Old Canoe Creek Road to US 192 on Neptune, because, but I don't see in our package where normally we have like the adjoining.
It shows it on the map right here.
I don't see it on there, but I believe it's all highway business down to US 192 because I know of an application that happened a while ago.
Right there. Page B.
Yeah, but all the way, because what was presented was this is like 192, but highway business is down Neptune as well. But for me, I would support it staying highway business. You know, I feel like we have enough houses. This is, you know, this is an opportunity for us to have a commercial center, and I just don't have enough information to move forward with it.
So on the screen is the zoning map that shows you what exists today. You'll see the property on the south side of Neptune is highway business, and then the property on the north side of Neptune across from the property is also highway business. And also to the east, along Old Canoe Creek is highway business, and then of course on the west side of Sergeant Graham is also highway business. That's a small tiny portion that's closest to 192. So yes, there's a lot of highway business in that area.
Do we have any other discussion?